What is up, guys? Moose here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys the best loadouts to absolutely destroy Pantheon. Now, if you guys do enjoy the content that I've been putting out on the channel recently, I've been starting to get back into YouTube, and I really appreciate all the support. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, as it does help me a lot. Without further ado, let's get straight into the builds. So how I can simply break down the builds is that in most scenarios, I have a neutral build and a damage build. Now, what this means is my neutral build is what I'm running during the mechanics of the encounter. So, for example, running the planets on the Explicator or running the rooms on Caretaker. And then a good example of a damage loadout would be after we deposited all the planets and we start damaging, and after we deposit all the runes for Caretaker and start damaging on the plates. The first class we're going to start with is Hunter, because it's my personal favorite. No other real reason than that. So in my opinion, the best neutral exotic is going to be Assassin's Cowl. Now, the reason why Assassin's Cowl is so powerful is because of the exotic perk Vanishing Execution. Now, what this does is powered melee final blows, grant invisibility, and restore a portion of your health. And finishers also do the same thing, but it increases the duration of the invisibility. Don't really have to worry about that. Basically, what we're going to be doing is chaining that with the Hunter dodge, Gambler's dodge, to get our melee back when we dodge near an enemy, and the knife trick melee, because it's the best one. Now, you'll see in the background here an example of this happening. So on planets, when I'm running the planets, I get a melee so I can safely run across the room, and you have no chance of dying, because not only do you have restoration up at all times and you have a healing aid panic if you really need it, you also can just melee any old ad, get invisibility, you get your melee back. Basically, you're just safe at all times. Now, for general damage, I switch over to Celestial Nighthawk. Now, I think everybody knows why I switched to Celestial Nighthawk, but in case you don't, what this exotic does is it changes your 3-shot golden gun into just 1 shot, but it does much more damage. Honestly, even if it didn't do much more damage and just did the same amount as the 3 bullets, it would still be good, just because of how quickly you can do it and switch back to your other guns and keep damaging. But thankfully, it does also give us a huge damage boost. Then, specifically for Atrax, I know a lot of people still like to use Golden Gun, Celestial Nighthawk, but I personally prefer using Star Eater Scales, so I do switch to these just for Atrax. You don't have to do this. I just feel more comfortable using Star Eater Scales to get the damage off. Just shoot my Parasite and Star Eater Scales. Now, there is one thing I do want to let you guys know. If you are swapping between your loadouts, what you're going to want to do is not have surges on your boots on your neutral game loadout. Now, the reason for this is you're going to want to have it so when you swap to your build, your damage build, you have all your stacks of surge ready to go, and you're not losing any. So essentially, on your neutral game loadout, you're going to be building up stacks so that when you switch to your damage loadout, you have all the stacks ready to use. Now, in terms of the subclass, you're going to want to remember that if you're swapping your loadouts, you're going to want to keep all your abilities, aspects, and fragments the same on each loadout. This is so that when you swap, you don't lose your super and all your ability charges. So what I use is Marksman Golden Gun. I use Gambler's Dodge. I use Triple Jump. This is kind of just preference, but for PvE, I prefer Triple Jump. I use Knife Trick. Have a Healing Nade as a panic button. I use Knock 'em Down, and I use On Your Mark. Now, for the fragments, what I'm going to be using is Ember of Searing. This is so that when we get a knife trick kill, it actually spawns a fire sprite. And this is going to go perfectly with Ember of Mercy, where picking up a fire sprite grants restoration. And then we're going to want to be using Ember of Torches, because we're going to be getting lots of melee kills, so we're always going to be Radiant. We're going to be using Ember of Solace, so that our Radiant and Restoration actually last longer. And then we're going to use Ember of Empyrean, so that when we get a Solar or Ability Final Blow, it extends the duration of our Resto and our Radiant. So even if you're not using Sunshot, let's say, I'm using Sunshot most of the time, but even if you prefer something else, you can still get a Knife Trick kill, and it will extend your Resto and Radiant. Now, for loadouts, in a 6-man scenario, I'm mostly always using this same loadout. Izanagi's Burden with the Wilderflight and Edge Transit. The reason why I use these is because you can stack them, double up stack it with Void Surge, because they're both void weapons. If you have a Cataphract and you don't have Edge Transit, feel free to use that. If you have a different grenade launcher, feel free to use that as well. And the reason I usually run double special is because when you're playing with 6 people, you should be able to rely on everybody to play their part. And especially when you're running Assassin's Cowl, a lot of your kills are going to be coming from your abilities and not your weapons anyways. So you're usually going to have this ammo ready to go for damage. As you'll see in the background here, I'll be running it on planets, and it's no issue. It's really good to kill the yellow bars because they have void shields, and the Wilderflight can break it in one shot. And even the Cyclopses, I believe they're called, the guys that drop the alignment, you can shoot 2 Wilderflights at them in 1 melee, and it'll kill them every time. So yeah, those are my hunter builds that I use and that I think are the best hunter builds for Pantheon. Now, let's get into Warlock. I don't have as much gameplay on Warlock as I probably should, so I'm sorry if you're just looking at the character screen a lot. Yeah, I don't really play Warlock too much, but I'll try to get some stuff to put in the background. If not, enjoy looking at my Super Black Warlock. Now, the only real 3 builds that I use for Warlock, other than for Aatrax, where you use Nova Bomb for a burst super, that's the only time I'm not using Solar really on Warlock. So I have a Sunbracers build. This is going to be what I'm going to call the neutral build. So when you're not doing damage, I'm using Sunbracers. You can even use Sunbracers for damage, but when you're in a 6-man scenario, a lot of times there aren't any adds left over to get a snap kill to proc bracers. So that's why this is what I consider the neutral build. And then I have my Aeons build here that I switch to just in case we need ammo. I can be the guy that provides it. And then I have my Apotheosis Veil build. This is what I'm going to call the damage build. This is what I use for damage. Now, if you're not comfortable swapping loadouts, you can probably just stick with Apotheosis Veil. I don't think you're really going to need the ad clear that Sunbracers provides with 6 people. It's just nice to have. A lot of people aren't really familiar with Apotheosis Veil and what it does. Essentially, what it does is that when you pop your super, you gain the Sunbracers buff. So after you pop your super, you can throw your 5 grenades. Now, this is going to be really good if you're playing Well of Radiance, because you're going to be obviously popping your super every damage phase, and then you'll have the Apotheosis Veil grenade spam. That is essentially Sunbracers. Now, once again, it's something really important to remember is you don't want to have surges on your neutral build. If you are swapping builds, if you're not swapping builds, you can ignore this part. But if you're swapping builds, you don't want to have charges on. You want to have a utility kickstart so that you can actually hold armor charges. Just don't be using your class ability because you don't want to expend it. Also, for Sunbracers, it's nice to have 1 Ashes to Asset mod because you get so much super energy for grenade kills with this mod. I cannot stress this enough. If you're running Sunbracers, you want to have one of these on your helmet. Also, for Warlock, I tend to run a auto-loading holster grenade launcher over a Envious Assassin one. And the reason behind this is because I'm typically using triple GL for Warlock. So, and I have auto-loading holster on all of them. So what I'll do is I'll shoot my mountaintop, shoot my Wilderflight, spam my edge transit, swap back to mountaintop, shoot it, shoot my Wilderflight, shoot it, then my edge transit should be reloaded again. And this is also because when you're using this, you're not really going to be getting many weapon kills. Most of your kills are going to be coming from Sunbracers, so you're not really going to get any stacks of Envious Assassin up, so you might as well just use auto-loading holster. Alright, now that we got the loadouts out of the way, let's get into the subclass. So I'm on Well of Radiance. This is a no-brainer. There's no real reason to run anything else in the game. It's so unbelievably broken until they change it. Yeah, there's no reason not to use it. I'm using Phoenix Dive so I can proc the class ability damage buff that Pantheon has. Then I'm using Burst Glide. It's just personal preference. Burst is just the best in my opinion. Using Incinerator Snap. I got my Solar Nades on, obviously, for Sunbracers. Using Touch of Flame and Heat Rises. This is, you can use Icarus Dash here over Heat Rises. But the benefit that Heat Rises provides is in the last line there, where Final Blows while airborne increase the duration of Heat Rises and grant melee energy. So if you somehow snap something and don't get a kill and proc bracers, just jump in the air and shoot a few things and you'll have your melee charge back. This also helps you when you do have bracers. So when you get your snap, you obviously don't have it anymore when you use it, sorry. And then when you're throwing your nades at all the adds, just make sure you're in the air and you'll have a snap ready to go right away. Now for the fragments, what we're going to be using is Ember of Resolve. This is the most important one because your Solar Grenade Final Blows cure you. Now, as you guys know with Sunbracers, we're spamming grenades and we're always getting grenade kills. So we're going to want that. Powered melee attacks grant you Radiant. You know this one, we're always going to be snapping things, so that's perfect. Then we're going to be using Ember of Empyrean, where our solar or ability weapon final blows extend the duration of Resto and Radiant. In my case, I don't use a solar weapon, but because the ability blows, final blows do the same thing, you're getting your grenade and snap kills. You're always going to have Resto and Radiant up. And then picking up a Fire Sprite grants Restoration. This is just in case my teammates are providing Fire Sprites. I can just pick them up, get my Resto, and keep it up with Ember of Torches. Or, Ember of Empyrean, sorry. Now, I do also have a Strand build here that I use if we have too many wells and I'm playing Warlock. But if you're doing an optimal team composition, this is never going to be the case. But sometimes I just feel like playing Warlock and we have extra ones. So in this case, I use Ophidian Aspect because there's not really many good neutral Broodweaver exotics. I mean, you could use the Swarmers, but they don't really provide that big of a benefit. So I'm just going to brush over this quickly. We're going to be using, I actually use Grapple to reload your gun quicker with, I believe it is Threat of Ascent. Use Healing Rift, Burst Glide, the only melee, using Mindspent Invocation, and the Wanderer. The Wanderer is actually quite helpful on planets if you're having trouble with the Tormentor, because the Tormentor is not actually considered a boss. You can suspend him. So if you make a Tangle and throw it at him, you'll suspend him and keep him busy. If you're having trouble on planets staying alive, this is actually quite useful. Then picking up an Orb of Power grants you Woven Mail. We know Woven Mail is overpowered with the damage reduction you get. Threat of Continuity, just so our suspend lasts longer. And Threat of Generation, so we get our grenade back quicker when doing damage. So yeah, those are my Warlock builds for Pantheon. And last but not least, let's get into Titan. Now for Titan, I'm going to be going over not the Banner of War build that everybody uses. To be completely honest with you guys, I'm not great with it. So I'm not really the guy to go to if you want build advice for that. You're probably going to want to go to someone like Salta Greppo, who's far more mechanically gifted with using the grapple points and the grapple melee, etc. But what I can recommend is the Pyrogale gloves. Now, I use Pyrogales for the first 3 encounters. So for Golgoroth and Planets and Caretaker, I'm using Pyrogale. This is just because it's a quick burst damage super that you don't actually need to be touching the boss for, like you do for Thunder Crash. The build isn't really too advanced. Like I said, I don't really play Titan too much. I will go over the subclass quite quickly, using Burning Maul because you need that for the super. I'm using Towering Barricade, Catapult. I use my Throwing Hammer just to grant Cure on whenever you want, pretty much. You just throw it at an ad, you get Cure. Got a Healing Grenade as a panic button. You'll notice I use Healing Nade for Hunter and for Titan. This is because they don't have grenade exotics that we're spamming, so we just want to have an extra panic button with the Healing Nade. Then for our aspects, we use Consecration because it works with the Pyrogales as well. And we're going to be using Soul Invictus to make sunspots when we get a ability kill. And yeah, essentially the weapons are going to be the same as you're going to use on the other classes. You're going to be using Grenade Launcher, Sniper, Hand Cannon. That's what I use. That's, in my opinion, the best. Or Grenade Launch. Triple GL is also really good if you, especially for Titan, because you have that hammer to kill things with. You actually don't really need a primary, to be quite honest with you. You can very safely and easily get away with running double special and heavy, so triple GL. And I will also quickly go over my build for Atrax. This is the one encounter I actually am familiar with running Titan on because of how good Thunder Crash is for one flooring Atrax. So I use my Parasite, of course. I got my Hand Cannon for making orbs, and I have Mountaintop on just to quickly kill the Servitor and the Scanner. Then, like I've said with the other classes, I do have 2 loadouts here that I swap between. So my first one doesn't have surges on the boots. This is so I can hold my surges and have them ready for damage. You have to have a utility kickstart on, so make sure you're not using your class ability because it will make you lose all your charges. I also make sure I have Proximity Ward on for this one, just in case I need to panic and get a finisher. I can get an Overshield. Now in terms of the subclass, we're going to be using our thruster. This is so that when it does come time for damage and we need to use our class ability, we can quickly use it because it pops much faster than the barricades. We're going to be using catapult. I use seismic strike just as this is kind of like our makeshift panic button. If you're sprinting and there's something in front of you, you can hit it quickly and you'll get your health back because of knockout. Then I use pulse grenades just to throw on the boss before I pop my parasite. And then I have touch of thunder on just above the pulse grenade. Then we're going to be using Spark of Ions, Spark of Beacons, Spark of Shock, and Spark of Magnitude. So yeah, those are my Titan builds. I'm sorry if you're not too happy with them. I don't really play Titan too often anymore, but these are the ones that I did use for doing low mans of Pantheon and just clearing it in a quick amount of time. Now, if you guys do have any changes or recommendations to the builds, make sure you feel free to let people know down in the comments. This is supposed to be more of a guideline, so you look at the builds. If you have little things you want to tweak to fit your playstyle more than mine, then feel free to do so, and let other people know what changes you make down in the comments. I do also have all the dim links for these loadouts in the pinned comment, so if you got to the end of the video, you don't actually understand what I'm saying, and you just want to copy the builds, feel free to do so. It's all down in the pinned comment. And yeah, if you did enjoy this video, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe, especially if you found the builds helpful, and I will see you guys next time.